Yes.
We are live. All right. Well, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about Will Smith. It's my glasses. Okay. Let's just get this over and done with. Right? Yes. No. 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 It is. Oh, get it off. Get it off. Right. So, you've just been painful. So, if anyone knows I love Thunderbirds, and this is Brains from Thunderbirds, and I had an opportunity to get a new set of glasses, and I kept losing my old glasses, which were like Benjamin Franklin glasses. I spent half my time in the distillery going, where the F are my glasses? So I have got these monsters, and have I lost them yet? No. So we have now addressed the elephant in the room. So no further discussion about my glasses. Now let's move on. Yes, we get it. After about the 50th time, I think that'll wear thin. Okay, so tonight. Okay, so where are we? We are shooting the shit. I had to recap for a sec. Aussie Craft Distillers, and we are joined tonight by Nick Hope from a Dusty Barrel Distillery. Nick, how are you, bud?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, mate, long time coming.
Absolutely.
We've had many deep dive conversations over the years, technical conversations and other. So it's good to get you on, and we got a lot to talk about. So we'll rip into it shortly. My co-host Luke is there, very quiet. The guy who's going to constantly just bring up the stupid Urkel picture all night.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh shit! My finger slipped there. I was trying to hit the delete button, but crap! I don't know. Right. Computers. What do you do?
What do? You don't touch them. That's what you do. Okay, let's start with for those who don't know, all right, because we may have a few new viewers, hopefully. Anyway, so shooting the shit, Aussie Craft Distillers is all about shooting the shit with people in the industry, particularly distillers, but we also have maltsters on. We also have cooperers, mainly Australians, but we also have some internationals as well. We have a lot of fun. We cover some more challenging topics, and it's not scripted in any way. It just goes the way it goes. So it can be a wild ride sometimes. It can indeed. So before we go any further, we always say, what is everyone going to be drinking tonight? So I'll kick it off, since then I can shut up after that. I am going to drink tonight. So I got this from Mr. Peter Bignell a while ago. I've had it a couple of times. A hopped malt.
Ooh.
Which is it's quite topical, because we're going to be talking about some new approaches to whiskey making tonight. And so I thought, well, how opportune is it to talk about a hopped malt? So 46%, and that's what I'm just poured into my glass. So, Nick, what are you drinking, mate?
This is our rice whiskey coming on board.
Rice whiskey.
So, snuck up to the shed and took a wee sample out of the barrel, and that's what I'm having tonight. So excellent. It's very interesting.
Right. Well, that'll be interesting. You haven't tasted it for a while, so it'll be a live tasting, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
I'm curious to hear more about that. Indeed.
Well, you will.
Well,
what are you on, Luke?
Excellent. Well, so last weekend I went to Tassie, and yes. I may have gone a little overboard at the markets and got myself a whole heap of. That's some of them. So I figure I'm going to start with an old Kempton. Nice. Lovely little bottle there.
Yep.
And then I might move on to a McHenry.
Nice.
have a little bit of Taylor Smith.
Gotta love that packaging.
I love that bottle so much.
Yeah, really, really.
Absolutely love it.
Fresh.
And a Spring Bay.
Nice.
As well, a bit blown out there in the pipe. But yeah, so I'm going to start with the Old Kempton because I've actually never had an Old Kempton.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, Bill Lark's heavily involved in Old Kempton. So he'd be glad you're drinking that. Awesome. All right, let's kick it off. Let's kick it off, guys. So cheers.
Cheers.
And let's start right at the beginning. For those who don't know Nick, so Nick is relatively new on the scene, but Nick is very technical and done his homework and has a very unique operation as far as his still and also his approach to making whiskey. So, Nick, I'm going to hand it over to you, mate. Just start at the beginning and give us a rundown on why did you get into it and how did you get into it the early days?
Yeah, well, I've always, with a European background, the grandparents doing the fruit brandies and the fruit spirits always intrigued me. Took a trip through Europe, played around in the schnapps factories. One of the schnapps factories I went through, I was asking so many technical questions that the lady on the tour just said to me, "See me at the end." And so we went through the whole tour, and she goes, "Right, come with me." And we went out to the back area, and we got to talk to the distillers, and I was just talking, and then the passion that came from those distillers about the fruit and all that, it just became engaging. That they said, "Well, how long have you got left on your trip? Would you like to work here for a week?" Which I did, and just fell in love with the process. And it was just amazing. I mean, you did everything. You cleaned, you brewed, and you ran the still. So it was it always stuck with me. I thought you had to spend a lot of money to start a distillery. And it sat in my mind for years. And then it wasn't until a trip in New South Wales, I actually went to Mendoran and we were camping and I looked up distilleries and there was one up the road, which was Blackgate. Stopped in and saw Brian and Ganesh. Ended up spending a day there. Looked at their operation and then that was it. I think I drove Michelle nuts the whole trip, the rest of the trip, just talking about, yep, we've got to do this. This is what we're going to do. And from that, I just pushed forward and Dusty Barrel came about. So it was really good. So it's pretty interesting.
When were you overseas in Europe and you had that week? And when did you actually as far as starting the distillery?
Yeah, so that was in 2005. I was over there. Wow. So that sat with me for that long. Always thought you needed that $1 million startup, to all that equipment. But so I always was hesitant to push forward and try. But yeah, once I got talking with Brian at Blackgate, that was it. The thirst came back and Michelle said, yeah, go for it, So yeah, that's what we've done.
And so how did you got that thirst from Brian? What was your next step? Did you start working in distilleries?
I went down to Tassie.
I did the courses.
Yep, did the courses with Anne down at Whiskey Academy. Went through, did that. Again, was asking lots of questions down there as well. Met a great group of people. And with Ben was actually on my course, from which you've had on the show. So Ben and I were having a good time in the bus. He's an absolute character, so that was fun.
Yep.
And then just from that, I just kept then driving and learning. And so it's been an interesting journey.
And where did you start? Like, what was your first, or what was your, I guess, your goal for your product, for your distilling? What did you want to get from it?
Sorry.
Monty?
There was something that Anne had said in the course. What is your point of difference? So what are you going to do different that no one else has got? And that just stuck with me. So I looked at the other distilleries, looked at the single malts, looked at all the different, the whiskies are available, and then started doing a lot of reading about, craft malts and things like that. So looking at that wasn't really something that was being pushed. Everyone was traditional. So we thought, let's give that a go, go down that line. We tested a few things, but just fell in love with some of the beers that we loved when we were in Germany. And we used that recipe of one of the beers. And it was just from that, we've just grown.
Right. And then,
sorry.
So then how does rice come into it?
So I was actually with, well, the rice is actually looking at the grains, at what people are using, and rice is just not used. It's, it's a cereal grain, but why isn't it? And I like my sake. So there's got some beautiful, delicate flavors in those. And I just thought, like with what Peter's doing with that hop whiskey, it's different. It's something that people are not doing. And then I saw on Still It with Jesse, and he did a rice experiment, and I went, you know what, I'm actually going to do that, give that a go. And it was from that we used a sushi rice. So we were looking at all the different rices. We used the sushi rice and the koji and yeast, and come up with a beautiful product.
How do you choose the sushi? Did you go through a whole heap of different rices to check yield and flavor and all those sorts of things, or what was your experiment process like?
The different rice with the different starch content was the first thing, and then what aromatics that we were getting off the rice. So that's so the latest brew that we've got going, we've actually got a glutinous rice, which is high in starch. We've got the sushi rice, which is a sweet, and then we've got a brown rice and a jasmine rice in there. So we're trying to build a bit of a complex whiskey using rice.
So is it 100% rice, or is it barley as well, or how does that work?
No, 100% rice.
Wow.
So rice, you've got to use a fungus which is called koji, and the koji converts the starch to a sugar.
Right.
And then the yeast that you add with it, then basically, eats the sugar and gets your alcohol.
To go back to the koji.
So it's an interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a very different approach, Nick. And I'll be perfectly honest, I really don't know a lot about it, but you just said something there which is quite interesting. So the koji is effectively acting as the enzyme, is it, to break down the starch?
Yep.
So what is koji? It's just it's a fungus, so it's.
Yep. So they use it to make soy sauce, miso.
Yep.
So they use that in China and Japan heavily in a lot of products.
Right.
And it's basically a good converter.
And where does it come from? How do you use it? Just like buying a strain of yeast, or are there different strains of it, or?
Yeah, so you can get.
Where does it come from?
It's really interesting because you can get a black koji, which is sweet, a white koji, which is nutty, and then you've got your red and yellow as well. So the yellow is pretty neutral. And I was just trying to think of the other one, what flavor profile, but each one gives a different flavor profile as well. So which is really interesting. And then you're playing with your yeast as well. You can either go a neutral yeast or then play around with your yeast. So, and since you're creating basically a rice wine to begin with, you can use a sake or a sweet mead yeast to build profiles.
Mhm.
So it's a whole new world.
Yeah. So does that mean? So are you making sake effectively and then aging to become whiskey, or what's the difference between
No.
rice new make and a sake?
So basically, when I'm making my rice wine, I'm basically making sake.
Right.
And then I take it from there, take the solids out, and then put that through the still and then make the spirit. So it's a higher spirit. So instead of some of the rice wines get up to about 30% ABV.
Wow.
And that's pretty much, they top out. But that's aged for a long time in earthen pots. But yeah, I'm basically taking it at a very short period and then, putting it into the still.
And when you're making it, are you basically double distilling it? So doing effectively a wash run followed by a spirit run and taking cuts, or is it quite different? And where did this information come from? Because it is not something which is front and center knowledge out there. You've got to go hunting for that. So we need to go hunting.
You do. It's either in Chinese or Japanese, so it makes it really interesting. And they really do. And they hold it secret. And and I was doing a lot of hunting, and I got hold of a sake maker, and I was talking to him about what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And so I was conversing with him in Japan, and it was from there that he said, no, only if you're going to distill it, only allow it to go to X amount of days, and then you take the liquid off the. Basically, it's like a clag sitting in the bottom of the fermenter.
Right.
And and from that, you run it through your still. So it was through him and his connections that they talked to me about it's going to come out a very high yield and very high ABV off the still.
Mm-hmm.
So off a pot still, I'm getting 75% coming off the still. So that's pretty high for a pot still.
Getting up there.
And what is how does it differ coming off the still to a regular barley wash? What sort of flavors are you getting coming off?
Oh, at the beginning, you get a very strong acetone, and you still get exactly the same as the other malts and barley and so on. And then it goes sweet. It's really like a switch. It just goes bang, and then you get the sweetness come through. And then towards the end, you get this little sneaky smell of rotten socks coming through at the tail end.
Yeah. Walk
the
line.
That's it. You switch it. And so that was something that, it's sweet, rotten sock, sweet. And then, you that's it. That's the end of your run. So, but I was quite surprised.
Cut at the right time. Hey, just since we've had a guest join us, I think it's time to roll the tape, Luke. Roll it now, quick.
I wasn't prepared for this early.
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
Right, so Mr. Todd,
I've got the most pressing question for you tonight.
No, slow down. We just had a real deep dive into the magic of rice whiskey, and quite incredible the level of depth that we've gone to. And so the first thing we would like the Todd to comment on it. What would you like to add to that discussion? Throw Todd under the bus.
So is this where I let him in on the little secret that I can actually watch while I'm eating off to one side?
Oh. Throw Crafty under the bus. All right. Well, we'll come back to throw Todd under the bus, or do you want to go with it now, Todd?
No. So my most pressing question for the night.
Yeah.
Is, Nick, in your honest opinion, do those glasses make Crafty look smarter or not so much?
Oh, this is just wrong.
It definitely makes him look like he's got big eyes, doesn't he?
Not same size eyes. Nothing's changed.
And then those go on.
Right. Changing the subject. I would like to talk about Nick's still, because not only has Nick gone a very, very interesting direction in the sense of rice whiskey, but he's also played around with base and roasted malts as well.
Oh, but just while I'm there, because you didn't ask me.
Nah.
So the whiskey that I'm drinking tonight is my drink of choice.
What is it?
It's Blackgate, because apparently someone was in their latest one.
Nice.
So
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I believe someone was disappeared down the rabbit hole after visiting.
Oop, I think you're frozen. All right, you go.
Indeed.
So go back to the still.
We're all freezing.
So, Nick, you went down a completely different line than a lot of Australian distillers, and it went over my head. So talk about your journey on your still, mate, and describe what type of still you've got.
Yeah, it's a custom still. So it's still based on a pot still, but we wanted to introduce a lot more copper to the system, and to try and get something, a lot of that sulfates out and things like that. We want to try and make it pretty smooth to begin with.
Right.
So the column itself, instead of being either with an onion or just a nice cone like yours, we've actually got, ours looks like a Gatling gun. So there's actually 19 2.5-inch tubes. So they're all basically clustered. There's air gaps between it, and basically, that's the reflux that we get from that, just with airflow coming past, is unbelievable. And if we've got the roller doors up on a windy day, it can actually almost stall the still. So it's and it's also a gas-fired still. So we've got two large gas burners underneath. So we just wanted to get that caramelization.
Right.
What's that,
so
sorry?
Caramelization from the flame. Right.
Yeah.
Which is a very Blackgate approach to making whiskey.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to go direct fire, but I was allowed my distillery on one condition, that was no naked flame, and I actually think that was a good thing for me.
That was Andrea's condition, wasn't it?
That was Andrea's condition. Yeah, she said no, you can't have direct fire, and I think Todd would agree.
It's so much.
Yeah,
just imagine the sort of chaos you would have caused with an open flame in there.
Oh yeah, can you imagine? But yeah, Nick, that presents challenges. So, and if we talk about what happened in Tassie with Adams Distillery and the unfortunate accident there, so a lot of scrutiny has come on heating of stills and that. So how do you manage that side of it? How do you manage the risk side of it? And how did you convince people to say, yes, Tech, you can have a gas-fired heating system?
Yep. So I actually had the gas authority come out and actually we had to do a test on it, run the still. So we had ethanol meters. There was 6 ethanol meters placed around the distillery, including near the spout and flames. We had to have then the extraction unit. So directly underneath, we've got a large fan that draws out to outside. Mm-hmm. That's also got then safety interlocks as well. So if, say, the power goes out, all my gas jets will go out.
Right.
We've also got a heat probe that goes into the still. So if it gets over a certain temperature, the whole system shuts down. So there's a number of different fail safes on there, and it does it. And I've had the fan go off, and then the whole system shut down during mid-run. And since everything's hot, that's a pretty interesting time trying to get it re-going.
Yeah.
So yeah, and once we passed all the testing, so we did a 12-hour run. So it did a proper spirit run. There was it didn't even register on the output into our container. No methanol or ethanol, and that came up. So the CO2 and everything, all my levels were correct, and then from that I got my compliance. So I've got a nice little placard that I've got on the still to say that it's a registered unit and all safe to go.
And it's so unique. Is there anything else? Where did the inspiration for that come from?
There was a guy in the States, and it's called Gatling Stills. I got chatting to him online, and his was 5 tubes, like a traditional Gatling gun. And we were talking about the seasonal variations that he gets, and you do. So when I'm doing a stripping run, I actually cover that column. So I don't get reflux, so it gets out hard and fast.
Right.
And to a question I saw popped up, on our stripping runs, we get about 40% ABV. And then on the final spirit run, we get the 75. So, so that's looking at that. And we wanted that seasonal variation. We want to see that in the whiskey. We don't want, like a lot of people chase the grain, like, that's from New South Wales or Victoria, the terroir. We're also looking at the condition of the still and our site.
Yep.
So we really wanted that then to come in. Yep, this was a winter batch. This was a summer. And really see what does that do.
And what does it do?
Yeah, what do you see? I'm curious as well.
So in the winter, the winter run, I've got more floral. It's a lot more oily during that through winter. Summer, I'm not getting as much oil coming through.
Right.
So I'm not sure why, but it's just slight difference. I can pick it, but yeah, it's a slight variation.
And do you find your still runs, everything just runs better in winter compared to summer? As far as your yields and everything else, it just seems to work better. It's easier to control your temperatures and that.
Yep. Yeah, I can run it really slow and get a really good product come out.
Yeah, right.
And what sort of temperature variations are you looking at between summer and winter? Like, what are your lows and your highs?
Oh, well, like the winter we had here 3 degrees when I got up in the morning and first lit it up. And the day got to probably around about the 12 mark. Whereas during that summer period, you're getting up and it's already 11 degrees. And then, you're getting up to the 25, 26s. So it's just that slight difference. And it's enough to notice that change.
Yeah, wow. That's interesting.
It's
and it's not something. It's not a feature that I've heard of before either.
Oh, the whole summer winter thing.
Yeah.
It is. It's definitely there. I mean, from our standpoint, it's more just efficiency. Things just, and Todd, you'd agree with this, but things just seem to work, and we can pump out more in winter than we can in summer. Because summer, your spirit temperature, you're trying to keep that spirit temperature low, and also just evaporation. If it's hot, it evaporates, so you're losing product unnecessarily. Whereas in winter, no, you don't have that problem. One of the things we have, Nick, which has been a learning, is so we're 800 meters above sea level here, and we get a lot of storms that blow off the plains, and so you get a lot of low pressure systems come through, and when those systems come through, they actually do. You can feel it. They impact the barrels, and you can hear it. The barrels squeak and groan, and they'll weep. So you're getting really solid interaction of spirit into wood and penetration into wood. What do you see with your weather there? So forget about the seasons, more just weather in general. Do you see that sort of phenomena?
Yeah, we do, because we're in like a horseshoe sort of gully. We're on a ridge line,
right?
And it's like a horseshoe gully. So we got the winds that will come up from either side of the ridge line, and that you can hear as you said, the barrels hiss or groan during that. When the storms are coming through, you can really hear it working.
Yeah.
So we get that as well. That pressure change.
Yeah, it's a real terroir thing too, isn't it? If you take the
absolutely.
concept of terroir and what actually is terroir, it's absolutely it's a big part of it. Yeah, no. Go back to the can you bring the image up again of the still, Luke? Because it is it's a really unique still. And up until 5 minutes ago, I didn't fully understand how the Gatlin side of it worked, and you've explained it very, very clearly. So effectively, you've got lots of little chambers, so you've got a huge amount of copper contact there, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you've got
absolutely.
You've got a 90-degree line arm there too, and it's a long line arm, so you've got a huge amount of copper contact. So you're pushing a lighter style of spirit. I'm not talking about the rice whiskey. I'm talking just the whiskey in general. Is that what you're looking for? Is a lighter style of whiskey?
We were looking between that sort of like a medium to lightish sort of whiskey.
Yeah.
But what we've found is that if you run that really slow in winter, the oil that comes through, we're still getting it. So the malt, the 5 different malts that we did for the recipe, that was unbelievable, the amount of oil that came through on that slow run. So it's an interesting one. We thought it was going to be more lighter, but it's actually surprised us.
And some of that could be the actual grains that you're using as well.
True.
Very, very oil content which is coming through. Let's talk about your grains, mate. So you and I have talked about this many, many times, and we're very, very aligned in our thinking on the use of base malts and the use of specialty malts, and coming at it from a beer maker's perspective, and the importance of malt selection to build your recipe. So go back to how that all started with you and your approach to building your mash bill.
Yeah, so going through Europe again, as you did, you had beer for breakfast. And I really enjoyed the Flanders Brown, or the O'Braun beer. And it was malty, biscuity, it had the dark fruits, and it was a journey. And I wanted to use that as our sort of recipe because it was a journey.
Yep.
And I wanted to replicate that in a whiskey. So we took it and then played around with the quantities, and basically came up with our recipe. And then it's come out exactly the way we hoped. We didn't use the bacteria the first time round to get the sour, but this next lot that we'll do, we'll actually probably end up adding the bacteria in to see what that does, like you do with the beer. So it's a
lactobacillus. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but you're doing it a different way, which is fascinating. So you're not talking about malolactic reaction with just your local flora and your local bacteria, good bacteria you're picking up. You're actually talking about actually directly adding lacto, adding the bacteria as an additive into your package, which is the sour beer approach, which is really, really interesting. I don't know. Yeah, that's fascinating from a control standpoint too. It's fascinating. You're not making scotch, mate. You're definitely not making scotch.
No. No, definitely not.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty about making whiskey in Australia. We have very little restraints on the way we make our whiskey, and we exploit it to the max, which gives us the maximum level of creativity in crafting our spirits.
Yep, absolutely. And I was talking that with Christy and Alan Bishop the other day, and we were talking about Australia's not held back by a 150-year-old recipe or a 300 sixth generation recipe. It really is our own, and I just love that people are exploring.
And more is happening in Australia, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, the rice that you're using, so you said you're using a sushi rice. Is that a local sushi rice, or is it all imported from Japan? Or
No, it's all Australian. So we've got it. Most of it comes out of New South Wales, and some up in Queensland as well. So so that's I'm using a sunrise. Is a lot of the product. The glutinous recently that we used was actually out of Thailand under the sunrise because they didn't because of our drought that we've been having. They didn't actually have enough crop, so they actually brought some in from overseas. But the sushi rice, the reason why we went that one is everything that I learned with the sake maker is with rice you want to get rid of the husk because the husk can give you some really off flavor. So they polish the rice. And sushi rice has been polished, and therefore the koji can really get to work fast, and then the conversion happens.
Right.
Yeah,
This is
it's a bit of a science.
It just excuse my silence, but I just sort of I get thinking about the process and the ingredient, and the mind wanders about the possibilities and the approach and the things that you would have had to learn along the way to make it work. It's really impressive. I just want to show as well. I found I was trawling your Instagram. I found inside of the column.
Yeah.
That's inside. Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's. Oh, hang on, Nick. Hold on. Bring up Nick's still. What's at the end of the line arm, mate?
So we got the condenser. So the photo that So the photo that was just shown prior with all the pipes.
Yep.
It's my condenser is almost identical to my column.
That's what I was just going to say. So that's almost a double condenser system.
Pretty close.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. Wow. Except for you're not running cooling through the Gatlin.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
So there's the whole setup there.
Yep.
What's the size, Nick?
It's a 1,300 litre still.
What's his name?
Oh, Maximus.
For very good reason.
Yep.
Mate, that is so impressive. I mean, you're like a few others of us out there. You're a one-man band, and just putting it together, and you're really pushing the envelope there. Congrats, mate. I've said it to you before, but talking about it now, it's good because other people appreciate it, and they'll be looking at that and going, "What the hell is that?"
Yep.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. That would have to be the only Gatling still in Australia, wouldn't it?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, it would be.
Wouldn't it?
Yep.
It's pretty much sort of outside the box, that one.
Yep.
So in talking with Gatling stills in the US, was it made in the US and then brought over, or did you get it manufactured here? How did that happen?
No, I didn't get it manufactured here. I was trying to get still makers to make it, but it didn't fit the time frame at the time. So I did get it made overseas, but I supplied them all the engineering drawings and all the specifications that I wanted with the thickness of floor and inside the boiler and that type of thing. So worked with them, and then got it made overseas, and then just brought it in.
Wow. So it literally is a unique, one-of-a-kind custom still, completely unique to the Australian market, let alone the world market.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I like to take a different path.
Yeah, obviously. And so I'm sure not the easy path either. How many different iterations of your drawings and plans did you go through to come up with the final design?
So there was nine separate configuration drawings. The hardest part was, how do you make the connection to the top of the still? How do you make that dish? And then how do you support all those tubes and weight? So we had to work out so it wouldn't collapse on itself. There was all those different things that you had to work out. And then I had an engineer mate draw it all up for me. He did it for nothing for me because he was just so excited by the whole project. And we had many a whiskey sitting there and mapping it out. So
best way to plan anything is over a few bottles of whiskey.
A few bottles. I got a technical question, and I'm speaking from a point of complete engineering ignorance, right? So bear with me. And I'm just thinking of the Gatlin design, right? And then it's coming up into the top of the Gatlin and into the line arm. From a pressure standpoint, So from a pressure standpoint, you've got all those individual tubes pushing vapor up, right? Was pressure a consideration at that point where it actually meets the line arm? Was there any I don't know, design specific requirements around that?
Yeah, so there was two designs. So we had to look at volume coming up into that top hat. Originally, the hat was very short and stumped,
right?
But he did a simulation that he had for gas and for steam,
right?
And we then increased the hat size, and then that gave us the enough space, I suppose you can call it, for it to travel through without actually causing a swirl point. So it was the Gatling guys have actually got like a little mushroom inside their top of their hat, which is quite large,
right?
And that's to actually stop that rotation as well, which we don't. But it's interesting.
Yeah, right. So
Linton's question there.
Yeah, so we've got a technical question there. The small diameter, about lots of them, you get increased copper contact, but you get increased vapor velocities, allowing to draw heavier volatiles and oils through. So does that tie in with what you were saying about your winter summer, where you're getting different oils come through in the winter versus summer, based on the pressure, the atmospheric pressure, and the still pressure?
Well, we were surprised at how much oil was coming through. We didn't anticipate. So I'm looking at that question. You go, well, yeah, it appears that smaller diameter is causing that uplift to carry the oil.
What are there any downsides to that? Have you encountered any unforeseen issues?
I learnt on the stripping run that I had to cover it because I kept getting reflux every time someone opened the door or something like that. You just heard it rain back in the still. So it would then stretch your time on the stripping runs. So once we covered it, it eliminated that problem. So that was just something that you had to work out, had to learn the still. And then from that, we've had no problems after that.
Right.
It sort of reminds me of. So we know a guy called Alan Bishop, who is so Nick and I know Alan Bishop. He's very much a craft distiller in the US scene, and he was talking about there's a still design over there. It's an old still design called a ThreeChamber Still. A guy called Todd Leopold who's doing some amazing stuff. Anyway, this old still was basically a resurrection design of pre-prohibition. But when Alan was talking about ThreeChamber Still, he referred to it as an oil machine or a terroir machine. The oils that come out of that machine are phenomenal. So there's some similarities there, Nick, isn't there?
Absolutely.
And oils means flavour. Oils means length of flavour. It means mouthfeel. Oils are a plus. Absolutely. Let's change direction because I think we've done this till to death, and there's some people watching going, "I'm bored. What else is there?" So,
just before you go on, though. So does your when you're doing the spirit run, do you get a really clean spirit, or is it still got a bit of bite to it? So
it's pretty clean. It's pretty clean, not fiery at all. Usually, especially at that high ABV, I was expecting it to be quite fiery, but no, you could pretty much drink that. That I wouldn't recommend it, but you could have a sip on it and not get that real stripping of the throat or anything like that. It was actually I was actually quite impressed.
The refluxing of your still, it's you're getting a very smooth spirit. So where I want to go is so the term malt streaming, which is basically individual malts as opposed to a mash bill of combining malts together. So I do a mash bill. A lot of distillers do mash bill, and some do malt streaming. Malt streaming, the home of malt streaming is Canadian whiskey. So Nick, you've done a lot of research on this. Give us, as a completely different topic, because people would know Canadian whiskey, but they wouldn't necessarily know what's so special about some Canadian whiskeys. So can you just run through malt streaming, the Canadian approach, and what it actually means?
Yeah, so with the Canada, with their malt streaming, they actually were one of the first ones to actually invent the enzymes to use to convert the starches to the sugars, and they had refined that process, back in the 1890s, I think it was, and they were then taking, predominantly it was rye grain, so Canadian is typically rye as their base. And so basically they would use, instead of using a malted barley or something like that, then with the product, they would use the enzymes to convert. And therefore, it was just then a single malt stream. So they were doing that also with some of the specialty malts. They've got some record of it, but not a lot of history on it because a lot of it was just with the standard barleys and wheat and corn. But yeah, they were playing around with some of the malts early days and using the enzyme to drive it. So it's actually really fascinating reading about it and talking to them as well. So yeah, no, it's a really interesting process how they do it.
And going back to a question that we had earlier as well, William asked, have you yourself looked into using enzymes in your whiskey, or have you ruled them out in favour of the...
No, we looked at it for what's the conversion, what's the yield, what potentially are we going to get a better flavour set, because you got nothing impeding with that actual grain, so you're getting the full terroir of that grain. So yes, we have looked at it. It's a tool there to be used.
Exactly. Yeah. Enzymes per se don't actually contribute anything from a flavor perspective or anything. But what they do is they consist in breakdown of starch, particularly with your heavily roasted malts and that. So it's a tool that can be used. It also it lowers the viscosity of a mash, so it just makes things work a lot easier. It's a tool, very much so.
Does it allow you? Because I haven't used enzymes myself. Does it allow you to? Yeah, does it allow you to shorten the mashing process at all, or you're still going for the same sort of length? You're just getting better yield out of it.
I think it's more a yield thing and just the viscosity thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, especially with the guys with continuous stills.
And Williams just followed up on it and asked more in relation to your rice clag viscosity.
Yeah, so that's really good question. So being a koji and the way that works is very similar to the enzymes. You can, like, so the yellow label yeast that you can get, which has already got enzymes built in, and the yeast and yeast nutrient. So that's part of it, where they're actually using an enzyme in that, which is very similar to the koji itself and the way that acts. And it does it. It breaks it down really. Yeah, there's not much left, and you do get a lot of clag left over. You're going to get a lot of protein left over.
Mm. And what do you do with the clag once you're done?
Yeah, good question.
Well, we did try extracting it in a wine press to get as much out as we could, because there was still alcohol in it. That was deemed pretty messy. Looked like I was at a kindergarten and kids pasted me head to toe. So that was quite funny when I first walked out the shed. We've also tried then adding more water to it to try and extract and just skim off the top to get some more alcohol out. But the time that takes, we just went, look, you know what, we've got it down to that clag bed, and that's it. So we'll mix that with other grain that we might have, and then give that to the cows and stuff out in the paddock, or we'll keep it in a cut down IBC and let it dry out, and then basically put that through the garden.
Right. Okay. So those cows are still getting a little bit of a boozy hit there by the sounds of it.
Pretty happy cows.
Yeah, they have a nap. They're quite calm, relaxed.
They line up for it.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Go back to, so the world's opening up now, and people can travel more. Personally, I want to go to the US in 2023. I want to go to Ireland in 2023, and maybe Scotland, possibly. Where do you want to go, Nick? Name some places that of interest to you.
Yeah, well, Westlands is right up there straight away in the States.
Yeah.
That'd be one of my major ones. Of course, go and see Alan at Spirit of French Lick.
Yeah, same.
And see what crazy concoctions and that he's getting up with, like Corsair. I mean, I've read all their stuff, and that just excites me reading their developments.
Yeah. And
then over to Japan, to a couple of to the whiskey over there, looking at the blending and the like.
Right.
But I think still Canada as well. So there's a lot of places I do want to go, because points of interest. It's because I still like the Canadian stuff because of their blending. Because I still see Australia as that's the direction Australia's heading, is blending.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So so I really want to look at that.
And we've only got a couple of examples of that too, haven't we? There's not a lot of blended Australian whiskey as yet. So I guess it's a right market for the taking if you can.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons too that we looked at the rice, because it's not overpowering or anything like that. We can blend with our other product and create something again that's something new. So because we did try a little bit with just a malt that we did, and the two together, it just works. So so I think blending that's definitely something I see Australia heading.
Yeah, it's something which is going to happen. There's no question about it. I mean, as you have more and more distilleries, that are doing malts. There'll be other distilleries which will do other grains, and effectively you're setting the foundation for establishing solid blended whiskey or battered whiskey in Australia. I mean, Starwood with what they did with Twofold is fascinating, and there's others which are doing it now. It just makes sense. We can make great blended whiskey, and blended whiskey is, in my opinion, is no way inferior to single malt whiskey. Single malt whiskey is just a way of making whiskey.
It's very much an art in itself.
Oh, blending, absolutely.
Yeah, there is a big misconception about blended whiskies that you're taking a bad barrel and you're trying to make it good. They don't pick the bad barrels; they pick only the good barrels to blend. And I think that is something that mindset's got to be changed.
Yeah.
I always find the single malt versus blended whiskey argument to be a really weird one, because our sort of top shelf is your Johnny Walker Blue Label, which is of course a blended whiskey. Most a lot of people who are drinking a Scotch and Coke are going to be drinking a Johnny Red or a Johnny Black with their Coke, which is again a blended whiskey. So it is a huge market. A lot of people drink it and enjoy it. So I don't understand why there is that that competition between them when they are two parts of the same brilliant thing. One's just mixed with other brilliant things.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is, it's like cooking, with its ingredients. So malt will give you a certain flavor characteristic. Wheat will give you a certain flavor characteristic. Rye will, corn will. They'll all do different things, and it's how you layer those to create the flavors that you want. You mentioned like Johnny Walker. So when you're right down at the red level and blackened back, there's a very small percentage of it overall, which is malted barley. And the higher you go up through the Johnny Walker range, the malt content actually increases. And the flavor differences from red to, say, blue are massively different. So it's an interesting thing. I think it's time for a throw Todd under the bus, because we screwed the pooch on the last one. Let's do it properly.
That one was completely flipped on its head, didn't it?
Roll it.
You always...
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
And now he can ask his bill.
Twice in one night.
Twice in one day. I feel like I've been thrown under the bus all day, but anyway.
Well,
what?
Well, you go. I was going to say something. You go.
So before I ask Nick a question, I'm curious. How did my brew go?
Okay. So for those that don't know, so last week, Todd and I did a double brew, which basically means we're milling and mashing into the fermenter tank, holding the temperature, milling and mashing, and going over the top of it, which is a little bit unusual, but it's the way that we did it. We had a bit of a miscommunication, and we actually
who miscommunicated, Todd?
Well, no. I said I was going to add the yeast, and I added the yeast, and then Todd added the yeast. So we got a double head of yeast, right?
Only half as much again. I only put in.
Only half as much, okay. And then on top of that, we had a problem with a cavitating pump that took us forever to pump water into the mash tun, so we lost our temperature.
So what would you do, Nick, if you've got 900 litres, you're pumping across, it takes you 40 minutes to pump that across.
Which it should take 10 minutes normally.
Yeah.
So it would have taken me less time to get rid of our spent lees if I just gravity fed it on the lawn than trying to do the right thing and pump it into the container.
Actually, the pump's fixed now, so we're okay. But the upshot of it was, so we doubled 1.5 hits on the yeast, and the mash temperature, we didn't strike at the right temperature. So normally, when we finish up with gravities, the final gravities are around 1010, which is still a little bit up there, but we're using some specialty malts, and so it holds it up with unfermentable. This one was 1020, which was damn, that hurt. So we left all those liters of alcohol behind, unfortunately. And I think it was because the strike temperatures were wrong. We were too low. And I also think maybe with the party with the yeast, there was so much yeast there that they just took it easy. They got lazy. So I don't think we converted as much as what we should. So
we'll do it again with equipment that works.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah. So Nick, from what I just said, what do you think? My thinking about the yeast, too much yeast and strike temperature wrong.
Yeah, if your strike temperature's wrong, the yeast is not going to be happy, and just be slow, and they're just not going to act.
No, yeah, they turn up to a party and don't do anything, and there's too many of the fuckers. That's the other thing. Yeah. All right, so that was a good diversion, Todd. But going back to your question, it was a very good diversion, actually. I was impressed. What other questions you got there, Todd?
I've got none tonight.
Really?
So Nick, if there's a newbie out in the wild who's thinking about opening up a distillery, where do you think they should go first?
Good question.
I think they should be doing their homework first on the internet, just like most of us have done. Basically reading as much as you can. And then once you've got yourself to a sort of technical sort of understanding, then go off and do some of the courses like I did it with the Whiskey Academy. That was good because it was thought-provoking about the process of the business. And then, looking at different courses like that in each of the states. But I think you really got to go and do your homework first yourself, and then you can come and approach the distillers and ask them then specific questions, because you can pick them. I mean, I've had them at our door where I want to do this, but they don't even know what a malted grain is. So they're trying to jump too many steps. So I think it's really getting in it, understanding it yourself, and then going, well, is this for me or not? And then taking that next step.
Just on that point. So I did the Angigney course, Tasmanian Whiskey Academy. It was actually the first one.
Yep.
And after that, I then took on doing the Institute of Brewers and Distillers certificate of distilling, which for me was fantastic. And I did a lot of learning. But at that stage, I hadn't really done a lot of application, right? Now, Todd is doing the IBD course as we speak, and he's got a lot more application. So he's actually a lot further into it now and grasped it a lot quicker than, say, what I did, because he's got the application side of it. So it's definitely getting the balance.
It's definitely good to go in with a bit of a base knowledge before you do some of these courses. If you're doing it straight off the bat, it would be pretty heavy. And a lot of the terminology wouldn't make any sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other advice that we all say to people is surround yourself with good people, right? But don't be just a taker. You've got to be a giver as well. So relationships are reciprocal. One thing that annoys distillers is when people come up and ask questions, and as you said, Nick, they haven't done any homework, but they expect you to give them all your knowledge, and you're like, "Who are you? You don't even, you know my birthday? No. Well, let's start with that, shall we?" I'm joking, but you know what I mean. It's the learning process takes time, and don't just expect people to give you all their learnings. Right? You've got to. It's like any relationship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Correct.
Got to go both ways. Absolutely. So at the moment, I'm looking at your website, and I can see that you've got your Dusty Barrel Dry Gin on for sale.
Yep.
So that's a barley base or a rice base?
That's a wheat base, that one.
Wheat base. Right.
Yep.
There you go. And
you go.
Sorry, go on. All good. Go on.
I was just going to say, now that's a whole different world as well. So let's talk about that. So botanicals and botanical balance and all that. That's a completely different learning. So when did you start to do that, Nick? And what was the drivers to get into gin?
Yeah, I was talking with Darwood from Ostra Distillers, and because he does each of the botanicals individually, and then blends them. So we were talking with him about the process and basically took it from that, and then did the learning that way. So and you make mistakes. So we didn't want to put the juniper forward either. So this one's actually got the juniper. It's actually set back. Right. So it was more we would, and that was quite deliberate, and that's to get people that don't really drink gin. That it invites them in and lets them experience the botanicals, and then they can sort of progress from that point.
And why did you go for wheat?
Just that's the texture, it's the mouthfeel. It's a very soft. So a lot of the like wheat and oat is very gives you a different mouthfeel altogether. So like if you use a grape, sorry.
Yeah, so I guess the soft wheat with the sort of rear-facing juniper would make for quite a soft and approachable, easy drinking gin.
Yeah, absolutely.
It actually does. Sorry, Nick, I'm cutting you off. Didn't mean to.
You're right.
I was just going to say it dovetails nicely into what we were talking to Marcel Thompson last 2 weeks ago about gin and saying that neutral spirits, whether it's grain, cane, or grape or whatever, people refer to neutrals as just the canvas, just the blank canvas, and the botanicals of what you use to build your gin. But what came out of that discussion with Marcel is, well, a canvas is not just white. You can have a white canvas, you can have an off-white canvas. The textures of the canvas can be different. All these different things. And when you think of it like that, you go, well, yeah. So botanicals and neutrals, how they interface, how they relate is very fundamental to putting gin together. So some recipes work well on a wheat spirit, some work well on a cane spirit, some work on a grape spirit. So it's a whole different world, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a whole new thing.
And how do you find the difference in between the wheat and then the rice in terms of softness and lightness? Does the rice have a similar mouthfeel to the wheat?
It actually does. Yeah, it is quite. It's very soft. but it's very aromatic as well. So you got this double play happening with it. So we just did just at the counter, we did some mixed infusions with like pomegranate and things like that, and you get the aromatic of the rice and then the pomegranate. So it was quite interesting playing with the rice as the neutral spirit, so to speak. And yeah, it changed the way in which that product was from what you do with wheat.
Right. So, okay. So we've got your wheat gin on the website. Where's the whiskey? When can we try your whiskey?
When's the whiskey?
When's the whiskey? When is it ready? When can I buy it?
Oh. The rice whiskey, we're still looking at probably about 15 months away before that one's ready.
Right. And how old will it be at that point? What will the age be at that? Oh, we've lost him. I knew it.
Just him. That's how you get a good question, you see.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, I don't want to answer that one.
I
Absolutely.
have to remember that one. Unplug it from.
That's it. Throw Todd under the bus. Unplug.
Yep.
Oh, he's coming back in. There you are.
Sorry about that.
All good. Crafty's going and faffing about with his still. Put some pants on, Crafty.
Jumpy.
Yeah.
So I've forgotten what I was asking. Oh, when? And how old will the whiskey be at that point after 15 months?
Whiskey when? Ooh, it's getting cold.
Yeah, so we're looking at another 15 months before that. So that'll be just over the 2-year mark.
Right. Okay.
And we're using a third use barrel, so we don't get a heavy impact of wood on the rice spirit.
So the rice will really come through. The underlying spirit notes will really come through and showcase.
And what sort of barrel are you using?
I think we
Sorry, I missed that, Luke.
What sort of barrel are you using? I think we're almost done.
Right, we're back.
We're back. We gotcha. Yeah, I was wondering about your barrel.
Oh, it's breaking up a bit.
Yeah, I think so. We may need to call it there because I think we are.
Hang on.
Crafty's going to open the door and he's going to freeze his nuts off a bit more. We'll see whether that helps.
He's going to open the door to help Nick's.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're talking about pieces of wood.
Talking stick.
What wood?
No. Pick up a barrel. Pick up a whole barrel.
Oh.
No, I'm not John Jarvis. I can't do that.
What's your barrel?
Have we lost Nick?
I think we might have. Yeah, I think we've lost him.
Wow.
We may need to pick up the conversation in a follow-up session at some point because I think we're starting to lose connection.
All right. Yep. Well, we'll
definitely. Well,
hang on before we go.
Oh, we're not going yet. Hold on. We'll see whether he can come back in. But we have somewhere in my collection of imagery here. Look at that. Sponsors. Our wonderful sponsors. Some of them don't want you to call them. Mainly Burnsy and Youngie.
Saverglass, dude.
Don't call them, they'll call you. Saverglass, CCL, they'll definitely they'll take your call. Transwood, they're not interested either. They're too busy. They'd love to hear from you. Love to hear from you, but they're very busy. Wild Wogan, always
Yes.
have water. They're
Always.
not sure. They've got
And
it.
all Craftworks whiskey, gin, and vodka is using Wild Wogan water, and water counts.
It's good water. It's good water. And of
Good
course,
water.
Barrel Brokers. And we're going to have Robbie on in June, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we are. Absolutely.
About then, mid-year, I think we're going to have Robbie on. So that'll be interesting to talk all things barrels and foreign wood.
Yep. And I've got something to talk about too. So we are going to have a whiskey camp. So a few weeks ago, we had a camp called Epic in the Valley, down the Capertee Valley, second widest canyon in the world and home of Craftworks. Anyway, it was a raging success, the camp. So for 4 years, I have wanted to have a dedicated whiskey camp, and we are now having a camp. So it's the Shooting the Shit Aussie Craft Distillers Whiskey Camp. It is slated for the 2nd of September, to be confirmed. And we have a guest distiller joining us from Tasmania who will be sitting around the fire and shooting the shit with us. The plan is it will be a weekend. So think like a ski weekend where you get picked up on a bus on a Friday and you get dropped off on a bus on a Sunday, and everything included in that. So getting clear of the Australian Distillers Association conference next week, and then turning focus to planning for the camp. So yes, it'll be the first Shooting the Shit Aussie Craft Distillers camp.
That'll be very, very cool. And we also have coming up over the next few months as well some tastings that'll be really, really cool. We won't tell you about them yet, but they're coming. There will be booze available to buy, and they're things that you just can't get. So I'm really excited for that. I think that'll be awesome. I do want to absolutely say thank you very much to Nick from Dusty Barrel Distillery. Head to dustybarreldistillery.com.au. You can see what, where, and how. From there, there's links to the Instagram as well, where he's got some great shots of that epic still. I reckon Alex would love to go and get a still fee with that one. It'd be a really unique. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, there he is. He's back.
You back, Nick?
Hello.
No, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yes. No. Maybe. So
No good.
no good. That's all right. We've done the plug.
Thank
We've
you
got another.
for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. We covered off some real deep dive technical stuff, which is awesome. Had a lot of fun, and we will catch up soon, eh?
Yep, sounds like a plan.
All right, bud.
Brilliant.
Talk to you.
And next time I'm in Melbourne, I'll be heading over your way to have a yak myself.
Always welcome.
Brilliant. Thank
Thanks,
you all
Nick.
for joining us. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Our next guest
Hold
is.
fire on that one, because there may be a change to plan on that one. Oh, hang on. Hold on 2 seconds. Hang on. Let me check. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves.
Oh boy.
All
Hold
right.
on.
Too
We're
funny.
professional.
Can
There's
you
nothing-
guess
nothing-
who's in
nothing
charge
else.
of the calendar?
So it would be. Oh no. Thursday the 14th. Yeah.
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 So it's Spirit of the French Lick, Alan Bishop, who we're talking about tonight, US craft distiller, one amazing fucker, and
Yeah. Can you update the calendar so that the calendar doesn't say the crazy US fuckers anymore?
yeah, I know, I've got to do that. I thought I did.
No.
And the best thing is that it's the day before Good Friday, so I don't always have to go to work the day after.
Ah, that'll be great. Brilliant.
You
It
gotta
will
look
probably
like
be a
that.
little. Actually, we need to figure out the date and time for that. We'll have that conversation off air because they are in the US and it's going to be
Yeah.
either
That'll be
really
very
fucking late or really fucking early for one of us.
Yeah.
Depends on who wants to drink the most.
Yeah.
But we will keep you all posted. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, follow on YouTube, Facebook, all the things. Give us the likes and thumbs up. The more of those we get, and we do still have our Cooper for a day to go off. We can't give it away until we've got the 800 subscribers. Them's the rules. So subscribe if you haven't already. Just do it. Subscribe everybody in your family. The faster we get to the 800, the faster we get to give away Cooper for a day with Andrew Young over in the Barossa.
And who knows, we may give it away at the whiskey camp if we get the numbers.
If
That'd be fancy.
That'll boost the numbers.
we're throwing down the gauntlet, people. Bam!
Yeah.
Take it. Run with it. All right. Signing off. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Where is it? See ya.
Yeah.